You want to start?
Yeah, we can start.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله what is meant. That you can joke, you can laugh, you can smile, you can be pleasant. You know, this is not what is meant. So you're able to identify the correct areas. But Imam al-Ghazali emphasizes that the law is good and it is clear. And that is that backbiting is haram. And that it is an act of perversity, of fisq. So don't ever forget that. And don't let the complexities that we get involved in and the shady areas let us forget that principle. And we have to do lots of tawbah because, you know, we, the sons of Adam, are khatta'un. You know, we make lots of mistakes. And that's why we always come back and we ask God to forgive us and we turn back to Him. And then we try again. And again, as we said yesterday, learning to speak properly is like training for a sport, or training maybe to be a firefighter or something like that. There are certain things that you learn, but there are other things that you come to intuit that you can't put your finger on. And again, when we talk about the metaphor of sports or martial arts, the initial training is really difficult and slow. And even to learn how to make a basic movement takes you practice after practice after practice. It seems like you'll never get there. But then if you don't do that properly, then you'll never master it. You've got to get the fundamentals down. So the main thing is pay attention to what you say and be conscious of the fact that we are responsible for all of this. So do not let the complexities regarding the exceptions, which we're going to talk about now, blunt the power of the principle in your moral and spiritual life. Al-Ghazali now gives us 6 special situations when riba is no longer counted as riba. Therefore, it's allowed. Sometimes, in fact, it might be obligatory. Sometimes it might be recommended. But he says again, don't allow yourself to engage in riba under these auspices without a solid sharia motive, يعني غرض شرعي صحيح. Even then, look first of all for other ways to solve the problem. And do not tell the person's faults until you are certain that there is no other way to get around this. So the first of these is when you have been harmed. When you have been harmed. When you've been abused, you've been oppressed. And one of the, in Islamic law, we have 5 basic maxims. They're called al-qawa'id al-kulliyati al-khams. Right? And one of those is al-darar yuzal. Al-darar yuzal. Harm must be removed. We don't accept harm as a valid default position. When people, men, women, or children, are living in harmful situations, that has to be alleviated. And we don't just say, oh no, be patient. No, this is not right. Harm must be removed. That is an obligation in Islamic law. We don't tolerate harm. When you have been harmed, you must tell someone who can help you to relieve the harm. And some of you have also mentioned the fact that, when you have a really disastrous situation in your life, you can't keep it in here. Sometimes you have to talk with people about it. It's just pick carefully the people that you talk to. And only try to talk to people about these things who can help you, who can give you guidance, who can enable you to get out of the difficult situation. Requires telling the truth about the person or persons committing this harm. In traditional Muslim societies, this might mean bringing your case before the ruler, or before the judge, or before the muhtasib, the person in charge of public practice, or an imam, or a sheikh, or a trustworthy person. For most of us today, we don't have the option of a ruler or a judge. We do have imams, we do have sheikhs, and we have lots of trustworthy people. But again, the person you're going to tell this to has got to be someone you believe can help you. That's what's really critical. And here we come back to the verse that we mentioned before, I believe, in Surah An-Nisa, women, number 4, verse 148. God does not love that evil be spoken of openly, save by one who has been wronged. So that's the exception. God is hearing, knowing. Commentators sometimes link this verse to the earlier discussion in the same surah of the repentance of the hypocrites. Some regard the evil referred to here as speaking openly about the former hypocrisy of the repentant hypocrite. Once the hypocrite has repented, they should not be vilified or reminded of their previous state. In the law, however, in the Sharia, we are required to bear witness before the judge whenever we know of wrong that has been done. Those who are wronged are given then a general right to defend themselves and to seek legal retaliation or compensation against those who have wronged them. In the Surah Shura, Council 42:41, and whoever defends himself after having been wronged, for such there is no way against them. Okay, so after you've been wronged, you have the right to defend yourself. This, I think, is clear, and this solves a lot of issues. In Bukhari and Muslim, it's transmitted that the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Inna li sahib al-haqqi maqalan. Inna li sahib al-haqqi maqalan." Verily, the person having a right that has been abused or denied has the right to speak out. And this is especially true in the Sunnah of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the case of people who don't pay back their debts. So in this preceding hadith, the person having the right that has been abused or denied has the right to speak out. But this, originally the context of this, excuse me, is about people who are owed debts which others wrongfully refuse to repay. Still, that doesn't deny that it has broader application. But in that prophetic context, this is the most typical scenario of borrowing money and then not paying it back. The following Sahih narration is more explicitly about the wrong of failing to repay debts when able to do so. لَيُّ الْوَاجِدِ يُحِلُّ عِرْضَهُ وَعُقُوبَتَهُ. لَيُّ الْوَاجِدِ يُحِلُّ عِرْضَهُ وَعُقُوبَتَهُ. When the person of means puts off, that's lay, when he puts off repaying his debt, again without a valid reason, it becomes legitimate to attack his honor and to attain his punishment. Okay, this is not tolerated, and this is also very important because these beautiful rulings that we have about speaking good words and protecting people's honor and so forth, these are norms. But don't allow demonic people to hide behind them. So, because this is also a problem that we often face. And this is why in scandalous situations that involve scholars or sheikhs, you'll see a lot of people say, you can't say that. You know, that's haram, he's a scholar. No, this is a scholar who violated his trust. And therefore we have an obligation to warn the community about him. But a lot of them, they don't understand that at all. And this misunderstanding of the priorities of the Sharia, this is what creates for us a society which often is totally untransparent, and in which people can sometimes do things that are outrageous and never be taken to task for it. Especially things that pertain to abuse of children or abuse of women. Okay, so it's hidden away, and you can't bring it out because of the structure of the culture. And this is not good. This is very detrimental. The person owed the debt has the right to call that person a zalim, a persecutor, and to take him to the authorities and to seek redress. Again, though, it is not permissible to go too far. So we may not backbite or slander him with insults that go beyond what he has done. Maybe we could turn that off, if you don't mind. Yeah. Okay, so this then is the first exception, when harm has been suffered. We have to take that really seriously. And how many times, this is also why we have to have women scholars. Two things that the Ummah desperately needs today is the revival of sound tasawwuf, real tasawwuf, with metaphysics and everything else, knowledge of the heart. But the second thing is re-establishing the status of women, especially of female scholarship, because it is just as big an obligation for the woman to learn this religion and to master hadith and Quran and fiqh and fatwa and everything else as it is for the male. And a lot of our really big problems in our community is because of the men's club syndrome. You know, that the woman has no one who's going to often listen to her, because the men are all together in this. And in a way, they support each other. That's not right. And again, once you begin to bring authoritative women into the picture, then perhaps you'll be able to get a better situation. And this is something very, very important. Helping to alter an unacceptable situation. So this is the second exception. Seeking help to alter an unacceptable situation. So it is permissible to expose people when we are seeking to change a bad situation, a munkar, and seeking to bring a disobedient or wayward person back to the path of upright and acceptable behavior. Again, in traditional Muslim societies, this often involved taking the matter to the ruler or to the muhtasib, you know, the person in charge of the society at large, running it, or other social authorities like judges or imams, or again, simply trustworthy but influential people who can do something about this, who have weight, who, if they weigh in on your side, inshallah, you will be listened to, and who can take the right steps to set things the way they ought to be. Seeking to alter an unacceptable situation. So this is the example that Imam al-Ghazali gives us. And to me, it's one of the most beautiful examples of all. And this is during the caliphate of the great Umar ibn al-Khattab, God be pleased with him. And during his caliphate, there was here in Greater Syria a man from this region, probably an Arab, and his name was Abu Jandal. During the conquest, he had been a hero, and Umar loved him very much. But after the conquest, he fell upon bad times, and he began to drink, and he became a drunkard. And he dropped out of sight because he was ashamed of himself. So Umar was conscious of the great benefits that Abu Jandal had brought him personally and the Islamic cause. And he loved Abu Jandal. And he cared for him. So what did he do? He got the Sahaba together in Medina, and he asked them, whatever became of Abu Jandal? Why don't we hear of him anymore? And so they told Umar that things are not good with him. He's become a drunk. And nothing in the story is backbiting, because this is a bad situation. This is an unacceptable situation. And Abu Jandal is a good man, but something happened to him. So Umar called for his scribe, and he dictated the opening verses of Surah Ghafir, which is 41 through 3. In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. Hameen, the revelation of the book from God, the mighty, the knower, forgiver of sins, acceptor of repentance, severe in retribution, possessed of bounty. There is no God but He. Unto Him is the journey's end. And He sent that to Abu Jandal. And after writing it out, Umar made dua for Abu Jandal, and all the Sahaba made dua for him as well. And when the letter came to Abu Jandal, he read it aloud over and over again. And he would say, then God has promised me that He will forgive me. And God has warned me of His severe punishment if I do not turn back. And also Abu Jandal knew from the letter that Umar knew about him, and that Umar cared about him, and that Umar loved him. And he began to weep. And he did tawbah. And his life then became a beautiful life. So he stopped drinking, and he began to be the great person that he'd done before. When word of Abu Jandal's tawbah came to Umar, he was very happy. He was happy beyond words. He gathered the companions together and he told them, and Umar kept the companions in Medina, by the way. He didn't allow them to travel around very much because he wanted to have their counsel. He said, may you also do like this yourselves. If you see one of your brothers slip and fall, set him right and help him. Make supplication for him, and do not help Satan finish him off. So all of this is islah, setting things right in an unacceptable situation. We're not content to have Abu Jandal a drunk. And also Umar didn't say whip him, although he could have done that. He said, no, we will use beauty to bring him back. So all of this is islah, setting things right. All of this is tarbiyah, moral edification. All of this is ta'lim, teaching. None of it is backbiting. And that's why it's very important. Even though they've exposed him, they've talked about him, he's known for the rest of history. And again, many Muslims today are unforgiving, very severe, and we have to say very unwise in the way that we deal with each other, especially when one of us slips. And usually we help Satan finish that person off, right? So this is not the way it's supposed to be. The third reason is to get a legal opinion, to get a fatwa. You may require a sound legal judgment, a fatwa, about a certain person, maybe your father, maybe your mother. So this requires that you expose the truth to the mufti. This may require you to speak about your father, or about your mother, or about your spouse, or about others. You must explain what has happened and seek a solution to the problem and find a way out. Imam al-Ghazali says, even so, in cases like this, roundabout speaking, ta'wil, is better. You know, what does a person do whose father has done such and such? But specific references are allowed, and sometimes they're necessary, and sometimes they're understood anyway. Because whose father are you talking about? And here, one of the examples that Imam al-Ghazali gives is the beautiful example of Hind bint Utbah. God be pleased with her, the wife of Abu Sufyan. And she took the Bay'atul Nisa, the oath of allegiance of the women, after the conquest of Mecca. And after becoming a Muslim, she went to her house and she took an adz, which we call in Arabic qadum. It's like a little, use it to chip wood and so forth. And use it for carving wood, a qadum. And, she destroyed the idol that she had been worshiping for years. And while doing this, she kept saying, Kunna fika fi ghurur. Kunna fika fi ghurur. Because of you, we were in a state of delusion. So she did tawbah. And we have to believe that. But Hind came to the Prophet ﷺ, asking for a fatwa about Abu Sufyan, her husband. Technically, what she said was ghiba. From that time until the end of time, we all know something about Abu Sufyan that he probably wouldn't like us to know. And yet, the Prophet ﷺ did not correct her. He did not say this is backbiting. And therefore, she establishes through the sunnah of taqreer or iqrar, of tacit approval, that this is permissible. And she said, Inna Aba Sufyan, rajulun shahih. Oh, that's horrible. Rajulun shahih, la yu'tini ma yakfini, ana wa waladi. Afa'akhudhu min ghayri ilmihi. So she said, Abu Sufyan is a stingy miser. That's backbiting. That's not nice. He does not give me what is enough for me and my children. Shall I take from his wealth without his knowing? And the Prophet said, Khudhi ma yakfiki wa waladaki fil ma'ruf. So he said, take what is enough for you and your children according to what is customarily acceptable. So this is a very good example, another exception. Number 4, to warn people. So we are allowed to mention a person's deviant belief or their unlawful innovation or their perversity to protect others when we know that this is not passive, it's aggressive. Again, in traditional Islamic law, you have a muzakki of the court. He is an official validator of witnesses, and he has to tell the truth about every witness, and he has to tell their faults. And we have the same thing in hadith, don't we? Because the transmission of hadith is absolutely essential to the integrity of the religion. So therefore, what if this muhaddith is a liar? What if this muhaddith has a bad memory? What if there's something else very seriously wrong with him? Okay, you have to tell. And this is what they call the ilm al-jarhi wa ta'dil. It is the science of wounding. Like we're going to wound this man and say at the end of his life he had a horrible memory. And he began to forget things and he began to make mistakes. And ta'dil, we also established the justice of someone like Imam al-Bukhari, who was really sound from beginning to end. So this is not backbiting. This is not backbiting. This is essential, for the protection of the religion. And since we're talking about women's scholarship, Of course, we have lots of muhaddithat. You find more muhaddithat in the biographies, at least I have, than anything else. Not a single one of them was ever found guilty of lying or of fabricating or of anything else. Isn't that amazing? Their record is spotless. That's quite good. Also, in marriage proposals. So when a person wants to marry someone else and you know something about him or about her, you have to tell. You know that this person is wonderful, or maybe that this person is not wonderful. Okay, that's not backbiting. This person is about to enter into a marriage contract.
If you were asked.
Yeah, if you're asked, right. You know, I mean, you don't necessarily have to go and volunteer the information. But generally speaking, if someone comes to you and says, do you think that I should marry this person? And, you know, that's often very difficult, you know, especially because when you pick your own spouse, often you become infatuated with things which don't turn out to be real. And men may often pick a spouse who's not good, and the other way around. So you have to be honest about that. Again, Imam al-Ghazali says, be careful not to be deceived or to be motivated by negative objectives such as jealousy. Do not go too far. It is transmitted in a hadith with a sound foundation, asfin thabit, that God's messenger said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, أتريعون عن ذكر الفاجر اهتكوه متى يعرفه الناس اذكروه بما فيه حتى يحذروه الناس. So he says, do you have moral compunctions? أتريعون, you have wara. Do you have moral compunctions? Are you held back by scrupulousness, wara, from making mention of the wicked person, the fajr? Expose him. Remove his protective concealment, his sitr. When the people know the truth about him, they will be saved from his evil. Mention about him what is in him so that the people can beware of him and not be deceived by him. So we don't live in an ideal or utopian world. We live in a real world. And sometimes we have to do things which are really difficult to do, but to protect the interests of others and ourselves. Again, here, the Sharia motive is clearly set forth. People must know about this person in order to be protected from him. The act of worship, of having a good opinion, husnul dhann, about him and about God and creation, must not render us naive and thus expose us and our communities to wicked people to be exploited by them, who conceal themselves under the Islamic code of honor and the believer's moral compunction. And again, these are the things where we really need help and guidance. And this is where the spiritual guide is very helpful, because you can see clearly, we can do this, we can't do that. I can say this, I cannot say that. A fifth reason is when people like the nicknames that they're given, even though those nicknames may be objectionable. Some people have nicknames that reveal their defects, but they like those nicknames and they want to be known by them. In Imam Malik's time, he was the greatest muhaddith. And there was another muhaddith who was his peer. in Basra, and his name was Humayd al-Tawil. How tall was Humayd al-Tawil? He was very short. He was very short. And so his nickname was a clever twist to that. And they would say that he is tall in excellence. He is tall in knowledge, but not in stature, because he was not very big. And Humayd al-Tawil didn't mind. Similarly, we may refer to the blind man, al-a'ma, as basir, as a person who has inner sight. But we have other people like that. Al-a'raj, one of the great grammarians, the lame. Al-ahdab, humpbacked. Al-a'mash, pure blind or part blind. Al-jahil, pop-eyed. His eyes bugged out. That's why he's called jahil. And there are other examples of that. So when they don't mind, and in fact they go by this themselves, then there's no backbiting. But be careful of giving people nicknames, and especially nicknames that they don't like. And so the last reason that Imam al-Ghazali gives is when people are blatant and open in their immorality. And that question actually came up yesterday. There's some people that are proud of the fact that they don't pray, that they don't fast, that they drink, that they do the things they do. So backbiting ceases to merit its name with regard to people who are openly immoral and who flaunt their perversity, their such as a Muslim, for example, who doesn't hide the fact that he goes to the bar. And unfortunately, we've seen cases like that, where a Muslim goes astray, and then he will actually drink in front of his brothers to show them that I don't believe in this anymore. And that's a disaster. But it also means that you can talk about it. In fact, such people are not bothered anyway about what people say about them in this regard. They even may take pride in it. This is different from the case of a perverse person, a fasiq, who conceals his perversity. In his case, as long as he is hidden under God's protective concealment, and he's not harming people, or he's not potentially harming people, then his concealment has sanctity. And we must build up his honor, and we must protect him. It is transmitted that the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Man alqa julbab al-haya'i an wajhihi fala ghibata lah." That whoever casts aside the garment of shame, julbab al-haya, the garment of shame from his face, there's no backbiting concerning him. The Salaf did not regard it to be backbiting to speak about evils committed by tyrannical leaders or al-imam al-ja'ir, tyrannical spiritual leader, or an unlawful innovator, mubtadi', who's changing the religion, or a person who is blatant in exposing his perversity, al-mujahir bi fisqihi. Yet, I want to tell you the story of Ibn Sirin, and he lived, of course, in the times of Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi. All of you know about him. he was really difficult, and he killed lots of good people. But he died. And Ibn Sirin was told about a man who was now publicly reviling Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi. Of course, this was after his death and after the demise of his Umayyad support. Otherwise, this would have meant, right? So this man is brave, but in a case where the bravery doesn't really count for much. Just like a lot of sometimes our Friday imams who will get up and rage and storm against our enemies and God destroy them, and like nobody's going to harm you. You're not courageous, and in fact you're asking God to make our enemies worse. Okay, so this man though, he is speaking about Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf, and this makes him look courageous, whereas actually he's not. And in any case, Ibn Sirin went to the man and he said, "Ma ayyuha al-rajul, ma ayyuha al-rajul, فإنك لو وافيت الآخرة." In another transmission, إذا لقيت الله كان أصغر ذنب عملته قط أعظم عليك من أعظم ذنب عمله الحجاج. واعلم أن الله تعالى عدل إن أخذ من الحجاج لمن ظلمه فسيأخذ للحجاج ممن ظلمه ولا تشغل نفسك بسب أحد. So I think this is really beautiful. Ibn Sirin went to the man and he said, "You, whoever you are, calm down and take it easy. When you meet God in the hereafter, the smallest wrong you have done will be more immense in your eyes than the greatest wrong that Al-Hajjaj ever did. Even if God will surely take Al-Hajjaj to task for the oppression he did, God will also surely take, for the sake of Al-Hajjaj, he will take to task anyone who does him wrong. So do not let yourself be busy by reviling or cursing anyone." And I think this is, I like this very much. I think it's very beautiful. Okay, so how do you atone for backbiting? We finally get here. And may God enable us to atone. Again, as Brother Ali says, and as I have to say, guilty on all counts, I turn myself over to the mercy of the court. So how do you atone for backbiting? You must do tawbah from it. And tawbah, as you probably know, means you must truly regret you ever did it. Tawbah is not just atubu ilallah. Tawbah has an emotional component, that I truly regret the stupidity I did. So I regret the backbite. And then, and you have to resolve never to do it again. Even though maybe next week we're back at it again. But that doesn't nullify the tawbah. Okay? Truly regret that you did it. Stop it. And resolve not to do it again. These 4 steps are enough to remove God's claim against you. Haqqullah. Again, though, as you know, the problem with backbiting is that you've got the claim of the other person. So you have haqq al-ibad. You don't just have haqq Allah. And this is why it's so difficult, because the person you backbit and whose honor you affected, they will be informed of what you did, and they will have rights against you. So this is the difficult part. The rights of God's servants. Now, some people would say that you should go to the person you backbit and ask them to release you. But this was never something agreed to. And even among the Salaf as-Salih, many of them said that's not a good idea, because it's very likely to backfire. And that person, now that he knows that you actually spoke ill of him, he may dislike you more than he ever did before anyway. But Imam al-Ghazali, he prefers this. He says you should go to the person and ask him to let you free. Talab al-istihlal. And many held that point of view, and many held the other point of view. If it is possible and reasonable to ask the person you have backbitten to release you from the claim against you, then that is a good thing to do. It's difficult. Morally, they should do this. In reality, they may not. However, the mere fact of mentioning the mere fact of mentioning what you did may be harmful, as we said. If you do tell them and ask them their pardon, make sure that there is no self-righteousness or show in what you do. That I am so pious, I have backbitten you. I called you an idiot. I said you were this. I said, please forgive me, okay? So be very careful, because this is also a place where our self-righteousness can come to play. The Quran says in Ar-Ra'd, Thunder 13:19-22, only those who possess intellect reflect, who fulfill the pact with God and do not break the covenant, who join what God has commanded to be joined, fear their Lord and dread an evil reckoning, and who are patient, seeking the face of their Lord, perform the prayer, and spend from what we have provided them, secretly and openly, and who repel evil with good. This is the point. Who repel evil with good. For them there shall be the reward of the abode of eternity. So they repel evil by doing good in response to the evil they've done. And Allah says in Al-Mu'minun 23:96, repel evil by that which is better. So this is the first thing, that, do something good, do hasanat in order to counter this. In the hadith, it's transmitted that the Prophet said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, kafaratu man irtabtahu and tastaghfir lahu. So he says the atonement you pay for backbiting someone is to pray for their forgiveness. So that's a great thing to do. And, remember the people that we have talked about, and ask God to forgive them, ask God to guide them, ask God to give them good. And also, we should make much dua for them. Al-Ghazali emphasizes that you make much dua for the person you have backbitten, and ask frequently that God bless them. This habit also discourages Satan from prodding you to more backbiting. Because if this is going to be what you do, that you pray for the person you have, then Satan is going to say, let's try something else. Turn over a new leaf with that person. Begin a new relationship. Try to endear yourself to the person you have backbited. You probably don't like him or her. That's why you did it in the first place. But maybe you can change that. Try to endear yourself to that person. Mujahid said, God be pleased with him, the great Salaf of the Salaf Salih, the atonement for backbiting is that you praise the person in public without lying or being excessive. But this person that you spoke ill of, can't you find something good to say about him? There must be something good. So, and again, make dua that God make him good and give him good qualities. Busy yourself with doing good deeds. That's what we said before. How else are you going to pay back the huge debts you will owe to those you have backbitten? Al-Hasan al-Basri was told that a certain man had backbitten him. So he prepared for the man a platter of delicious fresh dates, rutab. And he sent it to the man. And he said, بلغني أنك أهديت إلي حسناتك فأردت أن أكافئك عليها فاعذرني فإني لا أقدر أن أكافئك على التمام. So he said, word has reached me that you made a gift to me of all your good deeds. So I wanted to return this good to you. But excuse me, because I'm not able to return this fully. I can just give you dates. I can give you what you gave me. This is very beautiful. Some of the righteous of this ummah, they used to say, if you want to backbite anyone, you've got to backbite somebody. Then backbite your mother. She deserves to take your good deeds more than anyone else on the day of resurrection. And you can take her bad deeds on yourself. And this is, of course, the humor of these beautiful people. And, you know, this is the way they were. They taught with humor and in other ways, you know, to make this teaching go into the hearts. Okay, now we've finished backbiting. Wow. And it really frightens me, to tell you the truth. It does.
There is one dua you say for backbiting.
Sorry?
Somebody told me about the dua. You say about say backbiting.
What is it? Why don't you get it, and then you can I can come back to you. Okay. So the next thing we want to talk about is even worse, but probably not as probable, because I would imagine that very few, if any of us, ever do this. And this is what we call namima. Yes.
Question about when you ask somebody for forgiveness for something you might have said ill about them. Do you have to be specific, or can you be general and say, you know, forgive me?
I don't think there are any stipulations about that. But, and of course, the best thing would be to be general. That I have said things about you in the past that I regret saying. Please forgive me. And then they might say, what did you say? But maybe they won't do that. So, spreading calumnies, tale bearing. Do you have your dua?
Yeah.
What is it?
اللهم اغفر لي ما بيني وبينك وما بيني وبين عبادك تحمل تبعاته عني يا رب العالمين.
That's very nice. Maybe you can give it to us and we can give it to everybody else.
Okay.
Very nice, very nice. Very nice. So, namima is a malicious statement. It may often be false, but it doesn't have to be. But it is malicious because it is intended to destroy relationships between people. Sometimes it is a false statement. Sometimes it is a charge. Sometimes it is an imputation. And unfortunately, this is what we see in the media all the time. You know, a tale bearing, ugly, ugly tales, you know, done by ugly people, but attributed to us. So this then makes our situation impossible. Really, really difficult. Namima then doesn't have to be false necessarily. It can include backbiting. But whether it is false or it's not, the purpose of it is always to bring about trouble, fitna, and estrangement, wahsha. So you won't be at ease with that person anymore. Namima is absolutely haram and damnable and is extremely harmful in all of its forms. It is a horrible reflection on the person who does it. It reflects lack of principle, lack of nobility, and lack of basic human goodness. God protect us. People are driven to do namima, Imam al-Ghazali says, one, because they want to cause harm and suffering to the person spoken about or the person spoken to. Like, you love so-and-so, well, he doesn't love you. You see? You think so highly of him, but he doesn't think highly of you. So this is really, really malignant. Also, the person doing namima wants to give the appearance of sincere concern and love for the second party. So, you know, I don't want to tell you this. You know, it's really hard, but I have to tell you this. And so said such and such about you. And so they always present themselves as sincere. And number three, that will do that. Do for that. It is as if the person doing namima carries a banner over his head, which he doesn't see, that says, I am nothing. I have no dignity. I have no honor. I have nothing in me or my past to be proud of. I am nothing but dishonorable. I have no good reputation. My parents have nothing in me to be proud of. And again, when we confront a person doing namima, we should understand this is who that person is. And therefore don't trust him. Don't take him as a confidant or a close friend. Whatever he spreads to you, he will spread about you also. This is a psychological and a spiritual problem of the highest order. So namma yanummu or namma yanimmu, namman, which is the root that we get this from. It means to run with, sa'a, words, true or false, to other parties to cause trouble and estrangement. Okay, that's what the word means. The namam sits with you and then he goes to others to tell them what you said. That's often the case. You have another word in Arabic which is al-qat, and al-qattat. And the qat in Arabic, but it refers to tazwir and kadhib. Okay, so here you're actually making up falsehoods. Whereas that may not be the case in namima, it might be backbiting. The qattat also is an eavesdropper who follows stealthily behind you and listens in when you are not paying attention and then goes to spread the tale. And we have to be very careful, actually, because when I went to Egypt, I went to Egypt in 1973, and I had developed some good friends there. But, being an American, I was loud, because this is the way that we are, Americans, we often are very loud. And I remember this brother walking with me, and he said, please, when you speak to me, just speak loud enough that I can hear you, but not loud enough that the whole street can hear you. So this is actually good adab, very good adab. Speak to people so they can hear you, but beware of a loud voice. And one of the great evils of these cell phones today is that people will be screaming on the cell phone, in the haram even. And I remember when I was just in Mecca that this one man was talking so loud on his cell phone that another man said, would you please be quiet? Okay, but the thing is, the qattat is a person who always listens in, who tries to overhear what you are saying and then spreads the tale. And then you have also al-qassas. And the qassas is like the qattat, but he is the person who asks about what you said and then spreads the tale. And we call the qassas an athak, because if is spreading the reports. But the qassas will go, oh, you were talking to someone. What did he say? Tell me what he said. And again, this could be a big cultural problem. And, we have in the Muslim world some cultures which are very generous. They'll sacrifice a sheep for you, but they want you to tell them everything you know. They want the akhbar. And if you give that to them, they'll be very happy. Maybe they'll sacrifice another sheep.
That's why they all say shul akhbar.
Start
by saying shul akhbar.
What are the akhbar, right? Yeah.
Instead of saying how are you, shul akhbar.
Yeah. So, but really, in some countries, they want to know things they shouldn't know, and that's what they're fishing for. And this is very, very wrong. The difference is that the qassas with the sin does not merely report what he hears, but he or she actively seeks out the information, whether it be true or false. And we're talking about social media. We didn't speak in great detail about it. But isn't this what a lot of social media does? It's like you overhear or you see on a website something he said, and you spread it to the whole world, or you delve into the things they've said and you spread it all over the world. This is really, really bad. And namima, I would say, is a much bigger problem with regard to anti-social media than probably anywhere else. Because to do it physically, go to people's houses and so forth, that's really, that takes some, you've got to be bold to do that. Whereas with our social media today, you don't just push the button. You just push the button. Yes?
So where does secret intelligence lie in that? Because for the security of the state, to actually have people who
Okay, so this is a very good question. And the question is, what about security? Now, this is an exception to the rule. And in The Art of War, written by Sun Tzu, this great Chinese general, he has a whole chapter on espionage. And nation states must have espionage. Now, one of the disasters in much of the Muslim world is that the espionage is against us to control us. It should be, for the sake of security, to make sure that things are not being done that are harmful, but particularly to secure the state, especially from the outside. But the Prophet ﷺ used espionage. He had uyun. And every political and military leader has to do this. And again, Sun Tzu talks about that in great detail. And, so that's an exception to the rule. And again, one of the problems with the nation state today, with its tremendous technological resources, is that it uses espionage to control us. And that is not good. But to use espionage to protect us from harm, this is necessary. Did you want to ask a question?
Yes, sorry, Doctor. Isn't there like a line where some people also are responsible for what they post on social media? But do I hold complete responsibility for resharing something? Or do they hold part of responsibility because they know that it's the social media and that it is like infinite?
Again, I think that we need to sit down and talk about these things. And I'm not competent enough in social media to be able to speak about that intelligently. A lot of you know much more about it than I do, but it's really something important. We need to talk about it. And you have to be careful about what you post, it's true. And then also, you don't have a right to disclose other people's information without their permission. We have leaders in our community that are very charismatic. And I can think of some in California. And people will go to their house, and it's just like, wow, everything I see here and here, I can spread to the world. That's not right. You're a guest in the man's house. Enjoy the time that you're there, but you don't have a right to tell the world about everything he said or complained about or the way he decorates his house. That's his business. And a lot of us don't understand that. And it's about that, maybe in a little bit more detail, although we're running out of time. So, Namima then can be with texts, it can be with pictures, it can be with cartoons, it can be with mimicking gestures, it can be with all sorts of different things. Imam al-Ghazali says, the fundamental essence of Namima is revealing secrets, ifsha as-sirr. And this is again why confidentiality is so important to our honor and to our society. And rending apart, Namima rends apart the protective veil of privacy, hatku sitr. Namima also often involves being two-faced and speaking with two tongues. It is a disease, and the disease of Namima, tale-bearing, compounds itself by creating personalities that are two-faced and that speak with two tongues. This may often occur when the namam, the tale-bearer, discovers enmity between two people or two groups. He then stirs up both groups. And to do that, he's got to appear to be the sincere counselor of both. He has to endear him to both. Only then can he fan the fire powerfully. You must be aware of the namam. He is the embodiment of treachery. But you must be doubly and triply careful about the person with two faces and two tongues. Never be deceived into thinking that he is on your side, even though he will do everything to make you think that. But never be convinced of that. You've got to be wise. You've got to understand that what he is doing in your presence, he will do about you in your absence. All the thoughts and feelings that you disclose to him will be turned into fuel for fires of suspicion, distrust, and hatred between others.
Doctor, what is what is the best way to handle a conversation with somebody that is talking to you this way, and you feel this is somebody you care about, and you feel that he's going the wrong way, and you tell them, how do you approach it?
Well, if we,
just let them finish and just
how much time do we have? Okay, I think we'll get to that. That's coming, okay? Huh? No, it's okay. So it's transmitted in a Hasan hadith that the Prophet said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, "Man kana lahu wajhani fi dunya, kana lahu lisanani min narin yawm al-qiyamah." Whoever is two-faced in this world will have two tongues of fire on the day of resurrection. Imam al-Ghazali also now emphasizes something very important, that it is not two-faced and it is not namima when you go to different people and groups and speak to them in endearing words to bring them back together. Again, the key thing about namima is the intention to cause trouble and division. But if you go to someone and you want to make peace between them and their enemy, then you have the license to say things which are not true. Because you want to set things right. So he didn't say that about you. I know he actually loves you. He cares about you a great deal. Okay, this is the peacemaker, and blessed be the peacemakers. So it's not just that, is it true, is it untrue? It's also, what is the intention?
Does he interfere with their journey by doing that?
What's that?
Does he interfere in their journey by doing that? Like
Who?
the person who goes and tries to fix things in a positive connotation.
That is one of the best things of all to do. That is the journey. And in your spiritual path, al-khidmah, tuqassiru at-tariq, serving others shortens your path. And this is why in the spiritual path, you want to be a peacemaker. And you'll see that men and women on these beautiful spiritual paths, they go about this carefully. And they are doing what they're ambassadors of good. So this is a great spiritual path. This is a beautiful spiritual path. This is good. This is courageous. This is soundness of heart. This is overflowing generosity of the soul. And this is an-nushu lil-ummah. This is the mark of the peacemakers. The evil of the talebearer and of the two-faced brother of calumnies is in their hypocrisy and their desire to bring harm and division. So you want to bring peace and unity. This is very important. God in the Quran, in Surah Tahrim, forbiddance, number 66:10, he gives us two examples of disbelief. God sets forth as an example for those who disbelieve, men and women, the wife of Noah and the wife of Lot. They were under two of our righteous servants. Then they betrayed them, and their husbands did not avail them against God. And it was said unto both, enter the fire with those who enter. What was the sin of Noah's wife and Lot's wife? Namima. Namima. Noah's wife is reported to have said to the people of Noah, he is insane. He's crazy. He's a madman. That's namima. It's a lie, but also she did it to pit people against him. Lot's wife is reported to have told people when Lot's guests would come, and the guests that they would seek to molest. That's also a type of namima. Jamil, the wife of Abu Lahab, her greatest sin is namima. The palm fiber, 111, 1 through 5. May the hands of Abu Lahab perish, and may he perish. His wealth avails him not, and he was very wealthy, nor what he has earned. He shall enter a blazing fire, and his wife, Jamil, the carrier of firewood. And here it's like the carrier of false tales. She also would take firewood with thorns and put it in front of the prophet's house. But the main thing that she did was namima. She would go and tell the enemies of the prophet things about him. And his wife, carrier of the firewood, upon her neck is a rope of palm fiber. So Jamil bint Harb supported fully the position of her husband, Abu Lahab, in opposition to the Prophet. She mocked the Prophet when he was ill and could not offer supererogatory prayers. She would say, Muhammad, I think your Satan has forsaken you. She spread namimas, false tales, invidious tales about the Prophet ﷺ to the chieftains and the tribes people and the women of Quraysh to stir them up against him, and so that he would not have a fair listening. You see, this is of course what the media does to us. No one wants to listen to us talk about Islam, no. And in fact, many people are terrified about Islam. Even if you say, I'd like to talk to you about Islam, they would be frightened by that. I mean, this is a horrible situation, and this is namima of an order very similar to what was done in Mecca against the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So how can we get a hearing? How can we get people's ears? And of course, some of our brothers, like the artist Brother Ali and others, dealing with certain classes of people, they often encounter the opposite. And people are really interested in Islam. And that's the way that things go too, that whenever there is evil done, there will be people who respond against it, to the opposite. But she will carry the firewood in hell to feed the flames of Abu Lahab in his punishment. She was among the leading women of the Umayyad clan. Carrying firewood indicates the lowliness of the station she has now earned. The rope of palm fiber is said to be in retribution for her vow to sell a precious necklace that she had to spend on a campaign against the Prophet. So instead of that necklace, you have now, a necklace of palm fiber. The Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, لا يدخل الجنة نمام. No talebearer will enter the garden. He also said, لا يدخل الجنة قتات, which we understand as namam, and that's the person who's trying to overhear what you're saying to spread it. The Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, أحبكم إلى الله أحاسنكم أخلاقا المواطئون أكناف I have this in English, so it's hard for me to read it. Al-muwati'una aknafani aknafani ladina. I messed this up, so I'm not going to be able to give it to you in Arabic. But he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the most beloved. I don't have Arabic on this computer, so this causes me a lot of problems. The most beloved of you to God are those who are the best in character. We got that, okay. Those who lower themselves to others in humility, in friendship. Those who make friends with others and are made friends. Truly the most hateful of you to God are those who are constantly walking back and forth with tale-bearing. Namimah. Those who bring divisions between brothers and sisters. Those who seek out and discover the missteps of the righteous. Okay, so how do we respond? We've got 10 minutes. Maybe we have enough time. Imam al-Ghazali gives us 10 different responses to the namimah. First of all, never, never, never believe a word they say. Just as in the case of backbiting, you have the right and the obligation to deny the true statement that is being given to you to backbite that person. So here, you must never believe a word they say. Even if you have reason to believe that it's true, but reject it. Okay, this is really important. This is good for your heart. Never believe the talebearer. You must disbelieve him or her. And Imam al-Ghazali says, you must tell them that you disbelieve them, even though you know or suspect that what they are saying is actually true. The namam is a fasiq. And again, our brother C.D. Yusuf was asking about what about the person that you like, and he's really not that bad. And always we take special steps to try to help people. But again, the namam who is steeped in that, this person is a fasiq. By doing this act, they expose themselves as a fasiq. And you're never supposed to believe the fasiq. It is good to do this actively and insist upon husnullah. I don't accept a word you say. And often that's going to be enough because they're not that brave. They are endearing themselves with you. And if they see they're failing, then often that may be enough. To accept si'aya, when you run with reports to authorities, or namimah, is as bad or even worse as doing it. That's what he says. So don't believe a word they say. That's as bad or worse than doing the act itself. We have to be intelligent. We have to wake up. Never praise the namam for what he has done. Never thank them or affirm as true what they have said. Do not indicate that you believe them. Do not shake your head in wonder or dismay, like, oh my God, is that true? Don't do that. And here you have to be a little bit jalali, a little bit, magnificent. And that's hard for us to do. We want to have friends, we want to be nice. And sometimes you have to say, no, I don't go that way. I'm sorry, I don't accept that. And usually it won't take much. Forbid the namam from what he's doing. Because what he's doing is horrible. It is the right thing to do if you forbid the namam to spread these lies. This is enjoining right and forbidding wrong, and this is a good place to do it. Do not feel affection towards the namam. And again, we can draw the exception of a person who's really not that cultured. But dislike in your heart the talebearer. Be wary of him. be careful about taking him as your friend. This is not the company you want. This is not the company you need. This is not the company you seek. Al-Hasan al-Basri would say, "Man namma ilayka, namma alayk." Whoever bears the tales of others to you will also bear your tales to others. Do not be affected by the tale. Again, you don't believe it, do you? So don't let it affect you. Dismiss it. Can you do that? Dismiss it. Do not allow yourself now to have a bad opinion of the person whose tale has been born to you. Again, God says, اجتنبوا كثيرا من الظن إن بعض الظن إثم. Avoid much conjecture. Some conjecture is iniquitous. This is a place where you must reject the suspicions that are being put in your heart as evil, as iniquitous. Do not investigate the matter further. Do not let the matter move you to the point that you begin to spy on the first party to find out if what was said is actually true. And God says, do not spy on each other. So all of these are powerful remedies. They're bitter and they're difficult. And then he says, do not carry the namima any further. Do not become a namam yourself. Do not allow yourself to engage in the very act you should forbid the talebearer from doing in the first place. Do not repeat the namima to the ears of others. How many problems in our communities come out of things like this? Really? And we can think back, I'm sure you can, I can as well, of reports that were brought about certain people saying certain things, and now you don't want to see them anymore, you don't want to talk to them anymore. We have to nip it in the bud. And this is why this kind of spiritual training is very important. Now, there's a lot of other things to talk about. We've only talked about a half. Yes?
How can I dismiss what the Imam is saying if I'm not sure whether what he's saying is true or not?
Just, it's coming from such a bad source, reject it. Okay? And don't worry about that. That's what he wants you to do. Just reject it. Like, I don't believe this. And again, a lot of times, some of our brothers and sisters, in the inner city, often they have these qualities that they will not allow you to speak evil about somebody they know to be good. That is a noble quality. And dismiss it. Like, I'm not hearing any of this, right? Dismiss it. And you can do that. You've got to control your heart. Now, Imam al-Ghazali, let me see, what did I do here? Okay. Yeah.
So when we say namam, do we mean somebody who's an established talebearer or someone who's just bringing you a tale?
Again, the act is sufficient. But again, probably going back to the question of Sidi Yusuf, maybe this person is somewhat innocent. So maybe you can be merciful to them. But you should make it very clear that this is not what we do. This is not acceptable. So now there are lots of other things to talk about. It doesn't look like we're going to get there. But Imam al-Ghazali, in concluding all of these chapters, he says, whoever thinks about all that has been said, we've talked about half of it, roughly, about the dangers of the tongue and the benefits of silence, will surely know that anyone who gives free rein to his tongue or her tongue cannot come out unscathed. From this we understand the wisdom of the Prophet ﷺ in his teaching, Man samata naja. Whoever keeps silent will be safe. Each of the dangers of the tongue we have discussed constitutes a cause of destruction and perdition in itself. To speak is to take great chances with your destiny. Unless you have a well-spoken tongue. So work on that. And again, as we said before, work on your heart. Get your heart right. And don't worry too much about the social complexities in it. Just keep working at it. And this takes years. And we fail over and over again. So do tawbah and start again. Keep good company. So you want to have a well-spoken tongue, carefully spoken tongue, abundant knowledge, moral integrity that protects you and that holds you back from aimlessly stumbling into moral pitfalls, in addition to keeping a close watch over your heart. So be among those who, when they speak, attain the greatest bounty of all by virtue of their speech, and who belong to those who keep silent and are safe. And he says, he mentions the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, ألا أخبركم بأيسر العبادات وأهونها على البدن الصمت وحسن الخلق. I love this hadith. Shall I not inform you of the easiest type of worship and the most convenient for you, for the body? Keeping silence and having good character. And again, we live in cultures often where your silence is likelihood. So we have to work on that too. We can smile. And we need to create in ourselves, in our own culture, a culture where we don't expect people to talk all the time. Pay attention to each word. Think 3 times before you speak, right? Is it true? Is it harmful? Will it actually be beneficial? Whenever 1 word is enough, 2 words are too much. طوبى لمن أمسك الفضل بلسانه وأنفق الفضل بماله. Good tidings to anyone who withholds the excesses of his tongue, but spends freely from the excesses of his wealth. And as you heard this before, Al-Ghazali says most of us do the opposite. We hold to the excess of our wealth, and we spend freely of the excess of our speech. Again, as we said before, turn your speech into a voluntary act of worship, a conscious act of worship. Don't let speech be a thoughtless habit or a motor skill. Make it a voluntary act, an act of will and volition. Speech is about your honor and the honor of others. Again, let's repeat these words of the Salaf. أدركنا السلف وهم لا يرون العبادة في الصوم ولا في الصلاة ولكن في الكف عن أعراض الناس. We encountered the Salaf and found that they did not regard worship per se to be in extensive fasting or prayer. Rather, they regarded it to be in holding oneself back from speaking ill about the honor of other people. May God guide us to that. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. And we have to keep working at it and working at it. And inshallah, we'll get there. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. اللهم وفقنا لما تحبه وترضاه وجعلنا من عبيدك السعداء وأثبتنا على كلمة الهدى. علمنا ما ينفعنا ووفقنا للعمل بما علمتنا به واجعل ما نحن فيه خالصا مخلصا لوجهك الكريم واجعل تجمعنا هذا تجمعا مرحوما وتفرقنا بعده تفرقا معصوما لا شقيا منا ولا محروما. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. God bless you all. And I hope you had a beautiful night last night. I could hear the music